My dear friends, let me ask you something. Have you ever held a book in your hands and felt it vibrate with truth? Not just pages and ink, but power, real power. Not the kind that comes from wealth or fame, but the kind that reaches deep into a man's soul and says, "Wake up." That book exists. It's not fiction. It's not forgotten. It's the Quran, and it's the book they fear because it doesn't just ask for your attention. It demands your transformation. The truth doesn't wait for permission. It doesn't knock gently and ask if it's okay to come in. It kicks the door down and walks in like it owns the place, because it does, and that's exactly what the Quran did the moment it was revealed. It didn't arrive to entertain, to flatter, or to negotiate. It arrived with authority. It came with purpose. It came with truth. And when truth shows up like that, unapologetically, the world gets uncomfortable. Because truth doesn't care about who's in power, who's profiting, or who's pretending. It just is. And when it shows up, everything false starts to shake. People aren't afraid of the Quran because it's violent or mysterious. No, they're afraid of it because it's real. It speaks with conviction. It speaks with clarity. It cuts through illusions like a blade through silk. And when a person reads it with an open heart, they don't walk away the same. It challenges them. It questions their comfort. It forces them to confront what they've ignored. That's the kind of power you can't contain, can't sanitize, and definitely can't commercialize. So the world, the system, the people who build castles on lies, they fear it. You see, power based on deception can only survive if people stay asleep. And the Quran, it wakes people up, not with soft lullabies, but with thunder, with the voice of justice, with the call to rise, to think, to question. That's not something everyone wants to hear, especially not those who benefit from the silence of the masses. That's why the Quran wasn't welcomed by the elites of its time. It exposed their corruption. It confronted their idols. It told them they were wrong, and not just in private, but publicly, boldly. It pulled back the curtain and showed the people what was real and what was a lie. And make no mistake, the resistance to that truth didn't stop back then. It continues today. But no matter how much they try to twist it, bury it, or ban it, the Quran continues to rise. Because you can't suppress what was sent by the Creator of truth himself. And that's what makes this book different. It didn't come from a man, it came through a man. It came from above, and it carries with it a force that no human system can rival. People fear what they can't control. They fear what reveals them. And that's what the Quran does, it reveals. It reveals injustice. It reveals hypocrisy. It reveals what's been hidden in plain sight. And when you're living in a world that thrives on masks and illusions, the truth becomes the most dangerous thing there is. But here's the thing, the Quran was never afraid to be dangerous in the right way. It came to shake the world, not soothe it. It came to flip the script, not read the one handed down by kings and tyrants. That's why, to this day, it still spreads, it still speaks, it still transforms, and it still doesn't ask for permission. Whether it's read in a mansion or a prison, whether it's whispered by a child or echoed in a courtroom, the impact is the same. Hearts awaken, minds shift, lives change, because the truth doesn't depend on trends. It doesn't fade. It doesn't need validation from professors, politicians, or the media. It just moves, quietly, loudly, boldly, always. So the next time you hear someone speak of this book with fear in their voice, understand what that fear really is. It's not fear of violence or extremism. It's fear of a truth that doesn't bow to anyone. It's fear of a message that empowers the powerless, that elevates the humble, that humbles the proud, and that, my friend, is why truth will never need permission. It just needs to be heard. The Koran is not just a book you read, it's a mirror you stand in front of. And this mirror doesn't show your face, it shows your soul. It reflects the parts of you that even you try to avoid, the parts that stay hidden behind smiles, behind status, behind success. It speaks to the real you, the version that comes out when no one's watching. And that's where the fear begins, because once you see yourself for who you really are, you have a choice to make: evolve or run. Most people don't want to be confronted like that. They want comfort, not confrontation. They want to be told they're doing fine, even if they're sinking. They want a religion that nods along with them, not one that challenges them. But the Koran, it doesn't let you sleepwalk through life. It pulls you aside and says, look at yourself, really look, your intentions, your priorities, your habits, your heart. It makes you ask questions that are uncomfortable but necessary. Am I honest? Am I sincere? Am I proud in secret? Do I worship money more than I worship God? And the most powerful part, it doesn't stop at the questions. It gives you answers. It guides you to a better version of yourself, but not through shame, through awakening. It tells you what you could be if you dropped the ego, if you cleaned the mirror, if you stopped hiding behind the noise of this world. It gives you the courage to admit your flaws, not to wallow in them, but to rise above them. That's what makes the Koran so powerful and so feared, because self-reflection leads to self-liberation, and once a person becomes conscious of their own darkness, they stop accepting darkness from others. Once they see the truth within, they start recognizing lies outside. That's why tyrants hated it. That's why corrupt systems tried to bury it. Because it doesn't just create worshippers, it creates warriors. Not the kind that fight with fists, but the kind that fight with integrity, with dignity, with truth. You see, this mirror, this book, it doesn't flatter, it doesn't sugarcoat, it doesn't make exceptions for your status or your story. A king sees the same reflection in it as a servant. A celebrity finds the same truth as someone struggling to eat. It levels the field, and for a world built on division, on status, on ego, that's terrifying. That's why people fear it. Not because of what it says about them, but because of what it forces them to admit about themselves. But here's the beauty: the Koran doesn't just expose you, it heals you. It doesn't just show you the wound, it offers the cure. It meets you where you are, whether you're broken, lost, angry, or confused, and it says, come as you are, but don't stay as you are. That's real mercy. That's real love. It's not soft. It's not loud, but it's unshakable. And if you stick with it, it starts changing you from the inside out. Your patience grows, your greed fades, your heart softens, your purpose sharpens. It reminds you that you're not here to chase the world, you're here to leave a mark on it. You're here to serve, to build, to live with meaning, and you don't get that from surface-level inspiration. You get that from deep, hard truth, the kind that looks you in the eyes and says, you can be better, you were made for more. So when you open the Koran, don't treat it like a textbook. Treat it like a mirror. Let it show you who you are, let it show you who you're not, and most importantly, let it show you who you can be, because that reflection, that's not something to fear, that's something to follow. The Koran doesn't chain the mind, it frees it. It doesn't ask you to stop thinking, it demands that you start. Over and over again, it asks, do you not reflect? Do you not ponder? Do you not use your intellect? This isn't blind obedience, this is mental liberation. And that's exactly what makes it dangerous to the ones who thrive on keeping people mentally enslaved. See, when you control someone's mind, you control their life. But once the mind is free, the soul follows. And the Quran, it's been unlocking minds for over 1,400 years. This book didn't come to a university or a throne. It didn't arrive in the hands of scholars or rulers. It came to a man in a cave alone, unlettered, with no wealth, no army, no status. Yet what was revealed to him set off a chain reaction that shattered the chains of empires. Why? Because it taught people to think for themselves. It broke the illusion that truth belongs to the elite. It gave knowledge to the poor, dignity to the oppressed, and identity to those the world forgot. It wasn't just a message of worship, it was a message of awakening. Before the Quran, people bowed to idols, to kings, to tradition without question. But the Quran taught them to question everything that was false, even if it had been passed down for generations. It said, "Don't follow your forefathers if they were misguided." It said, "Don't be impressed by wealth or numbers, be impressed by truth." That kind of thinking creates revolutionaries, not followers. It builds leaders, not sheep. It doesn't just give answers, it trains you to ask better questions, and that's the real threat. Because a liberated mind is a dangerous thing to those who profit from ignorance. Governments, corporations, and corrupt institutions, they rely on people staying passive, staying distracted, staying dependent. But the Quran, it wakes you up. It tells you that your worth doesn't come from what you wear or what you own. It comes from your character, your conviction, your connection to the Creator. It strips away the noise and returns you to your essence. It tells you to read Iqra. That was the first word revealed. Not fight, not obey, not even pray. Read, learn, seek knowledge. That was the foundation. And for a community that had been kept in the dark for generations, that command lit a fire. It led to centuries of scholarship, science, medicine, mathematics, all rooted in a divine command to think, to learn, to grow. That's not just religion, that's revolution. But this liberation doesn't just happen on a societal level. It happens inside you. It frees you from comparison, from insecurity, from chasing illusions. It tells you that your value isn't in the approval of people, it's in the sight of God. That you don't have to wear a mask to be accepted. That your mind was made to rise, not to rot in self-doubt. And once you start thinking with purpose, living with purpose, you stop letting the world define you. You define yourself through truth. The Quran doesn't brainwash, it cleanses the brain. It detoxes the mind from false ideas, toxic beliefs, and self-imposed limitations. It replaces fear with faith, confusion with clarity, noise with stillness, and the more you read it, the more you realize this isn't a book that asks for your submission blindly. It gives you every reason to submit intellectually, emotionally, spiritually, through proof, through reflection, through personal transformation. So if they fear this book, it's not because it puts minds in chains. It's because it breaks the chains. It dismantles systems of control. It gives power to the powerless. It creates thinkers, not followers. And in a world where ignorance is currency, a liberated mind is priceless. That's what the Quran gives you, and that's something no one can take away once it's awakened. Fear is almost always rooted in ignorance. What we don't understand, we avoid. What we refuse to learn about, we're quick to judge. And that's exactly why so many people fear the Quran, not because they've studied it and found danger, but because they've never studied it and assumed the worst. They've heard headlines, they've seen distorted images. They've been told what to think, not taught how to think. And in that fog of misinformation, fear is born. But here's the truth. You cannot fear something honestly if you've never truly known it. The Quran has been labeled and misunderstood for decades, especially in modern times. But what's astonishing is how many people who criticize it have never read even one chapter, let alone studied its context, its message, its purpose. They build their opinions on sound bites, on second-hand stories, on narratives shaped by media, politics, or prejudice. And when something has the power to transform people, to uplift, to awaken, to empower the ones who don't want to see that change, will do whatever it takes to make people fear it. That's the strategy. If they can't destroy it, they'll distort it. If they can't disprove it, they'll distract people from it. But fear built on ignorance is weak. It's loud, but it's shallow, because the moment someone breaks through that fog and starts reading with an open heart and a clear mind, everything changes. That's when fear turns into curiosity, curiosity into reflection, and reflection into understanding. That's what happens again and again. A person picks up the Quran, maybe skeptical, maybe unsure, and suddenly they find something that speaks directly to them. Not at them, to them. They find wisdom where they expected rage. They find mercy where they expected violence. They find balance, structure, hope, and beauty in verses that had been misquoted, twisted, and weaponized out of context for decades. And once that clarity hits, the fear crumbles, because knowledge defeats ignorance the same way light defeats darkness instantly. You don't need to shout, you don't need to fight, you just need to open the book and let it speak. But ignorance doesn't just come from those outside the faith. Sometimes the fear exists even within, because people were never taught what the Quran truly says. They were told rules, but not reasons. They were given culture, but not clarity. And when hardship comes, when questions arise, when life gets messy, that shallow understanding isn't enough. So fear creeps in, doubt creeps in, but again it all goes back to ignorance. You can't love what you don't understand, and you can't understand what you never engage with. That's why reading the Quran for yourself is so important, not through someone else's lens, not filtered through fear or politics or media. Just you, the words, and an open heart. Because when you take that step, you start to realize this book isn't here to enslave your mind. It's here to free it. It's not here to make you fear God like a tyrant. It's here to teach you to love God with awe and sincerity. It's not here to control you. It's here to guide you, protect you, elevate you. So yes, fear does come from ignorance. But knowledge is the cure, and the Quran doesn't hide itself. It doesn't need to. It's not afraid of your questions. In fact, it welcomes them. It responds with reason, with stories, with signs, with evidence. It was revealed to be understood, not blindly followed, not feared from afar. So let the fear go, replace it with truth, replace it with understanding, because once you step into the light of knowledge, ignorance can't follow you, and neither can fear. The Quran is more than a book of spiritual guidance. It's a complete blueprint for life. It doesn't just tell you what to believe, it shows you how to live. From the moment you wake up to the moment you return to the earth, it provides a path, a way to walk through this world with purpose, with clarity, with balance. It doesn't separate your soul from your surroundings, it connects your worship to your work, your prayers to your problems, your faith to your family. That's what makes it powerful. That's what makes it timeless. It teaches you how to deal with success, not by chasing ego, but by showing gratitude. It teaches you how to handle failure, not by falling into despair, but by trusting the plan and learning from the lesson. It tells you how to treat people, whether they love you or hate you. It teaches patience in adversity, humility in victory, and integrity in everything in between. It speaks to the leader and the laborer, the teacher and the student, the rich and the poor, and it speaks to them all with equal worth. You see, the Quran doesn't just build believers, it builds better humans. It doesn't ask you to escape the world to get closer to God. It shows you how to live in this world without being consumed by it, how to walk through wealth without worshipping it, how to deal with conflict without becoming cruel, how to protect your heart while still engaging with society. It's not about perfection, it's about direction, about keeping your compass pointed toward truth even when the road gets messy. Look at how it talks about money, earn it honestly, Spend it wisely and don't let it own you. Look at how it talks about family. Be gentle with your parents, fair with your spouse, kind to your children. Look at how it talks about justice. Stand for it, even if it's against yourself. That kind of message doesn't go out of date. That kind of guidance isn't trapped in the past. It's built for every generation, every culture, every moment. And what's amazing is how relevant it still is in a world drowning in noise, distraction, and confusion. The Quran cuts through with clarity. It reminds you who you are, who you serve, and what actually matters. It gives you an identity that doesn't crumble with trends or likes or opinions. It centers you, grounds you, builds you from the inside out. That's why it's not just a religious book, it's a life manual. It doesn't just prepare you for the hereafter, it prepares you for here, for now, for relationships, for hardships, for choices, for growth. And the more you follow its guidance, the more you realize this isn't just a book that sits on a shelf. It's a map that leads to peace in a world full of chaos. A blueprint that, if lived sincerely, builds a life that's whole, purposeful, and deeply rooted in truth. The Quran didn't come just to change one generation, it came to transform every generation. Its legacy isn't frozen in time. It's alive, unfolding with every sincere heart that turns to it. The moment it was revealed, it sparked a movement, not just of faith, but of civilization, of growth, of progress rooted in purpose. And that legacy continues not in museums or dusty libraries, but in the hearts of millions who carry its words, live by its values, and pass it on not just through speech, but through action. You don't have to look far to see its impact. It's in the child who memorizes its verses before they even understand the weight of its words. It's in the mother who raises her family with patience and love because the Quran taught her mercy. It's in the man who walks away from a deal that could have made him rich but dishonest because the Quran taught him integrity. It's in the communities that come together during hardship, not to complain, but to support, because the Quran taught them compassion. This book is not just recited, it's lived. It becomes a way of being. That's the power of divine truth. It doesn't retire. It doesn't expire. While empires fall and ideologies fade, the Quran remains relevant, resonant, revolutionary. And every time someone opens it with sincerity, that legacy is renewed. It's not about old stories, it's about eternal principles. Justice, mercy, humility, gratitude, courage, self-control, these aren't abstract ideals. They are living instructions. And every time someone chooses to walk in that light, the flame of legacy burns brighter. What's even more incredible is how it's preserved. Word for word, letter for letter, unchanged for over 1,400 years. Not because of scholars or systems, but because people, ordinary people, chose to memorize it, protect it, live it. Farmers, orphans, students, teachers, in every corner of the world, in every language and culture, the Quran continues to breathe through hearts and lives. That's not just legacy, that's a miracle unfolding daily. And it's not just personal. The Quran laid the foundation for schools, hospitals, libraries, scientific exploration, and moral codes. It pushed entire civilizations toward literacy, equity, and intellectual curiosity. All of that came from a book revealed in the desert to a man who could neither read nor write, yet the echo of those words still shapes hearts, homes, and societies across the globe. So when you hear its verses today, when you see someone moved by its message, know this: the legacy is still alive. Every tear shed in prayer, every act of kindness done in secret, every injustice stood against with courage, that's the Quran at work. That's its story continuing, and here's the truth. The legacy will continue because it doesn't depend on fame or force. It depends on truth, and truth doesn't fade. It spreads, it settles, and it stays. The Quran's legacy isn't just in history, it's in motion, and you're part of it. So I say this to you: don't fear the book they fear. Read it, know it, live it, because when the world tries to bury truth, it's only because it's afraid of what that truth can raise. And the Quran, it doesn't just raise people, it raises nations. Stand on it, stand with it, and never be afraid of a book that teaches you how to be fearless.